Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 252, November the 15th, 2017, Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, you know what Wednesday is? That is, of course, garbage night. Not just that, it's the day of the week that I eat chicken. Every Wednesday, I have chicken and I take out the garbage. That's how I know it's Wednesday. Alrighty, now that we've got that out of the way, meet the new judge, same as the old judge. I've been following this these court hearings by these court filings by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. He's of course trying to get the bank records from Fusion GPS because he wants to find out where all the money went. He knows a lot of money was passed through Fusion GPS, and he knows where some of that money went. Of course, went to Christopher Steele. It went to pay various sources, and he believes it went to pay media sources as well, possibly others. And so that's why Devin Nunes is trying to get these bank records from Fusion GPS. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth here because, of course, Fusion GPS attorneys are, of course, fighting that. Now, for the first 3 or 4 hearings, the judge who was over that case was this Judge Tanya Chatkin. But she was recently removed from the case because they found that she had conflicts of interest. She had given over $4,000 to Obama campaign as well as Democratic political action committees, made contributions there, as well as donating to the rotten Reverend Clinton. So they found that, okay, well, she's got conflict of interest, so she was bumped in replace of a new judge named Richard Leon. But unfortunately, we're finding now that Judge Leon has some conflicts of interest of his own. We're learning now that he is quite friendly with John Podesta. And we know for sure that he's pretty friendly with John Podesta because as part of the Podesta email leaks, we have several email conversations between John Podesta and Judge Richard Leon. One in particular where Judge Leon, and they're talking about something, but they're disguising what they're talking about. But Judge Leon, Richard Leon, says in his comment back to Podesta, don't worry about it, my friend, I'll get it all taken care of, or it's been taken care of, or it will be taken care of, or something to that effect, proving that he was doing something for John Podesta. So now we have the new judge, like the old judge, who is over these hearings, which will determine whether or not Devin Nunes and the House Intelligence Committee will get all those records that they want, bank records that they want from Fusion GPS. So meet the new judge, same as the old judge. Major conflict of interest. They should remove him right away. You cannot have a judge over this case who has relationships with any of the people involved in the potential crime. And John Podesta is up to his eyeballs in the Fusion GPS and larger issues surrounding it. You can't have this. So why they appointed him without looking into that to see if he had any conflicts of interest, when you would think he would have been asked, do you have any conflicts of interest before being put on this case? You think that someone would have asked him, do you know Clinton? Do you know Podesta? Do you know Glenn Simpson? Do you know any of these people or anything like that? Have you been a part of any of these political campaigns? Are you a donor? Blah, 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 blah. There's all these questions. You know, when you're asked, when you're selected for jury duty and you go for jury duty, they send you a questionnaire and then they sit down and interview you personally. It's not a long interview, but they do ask you some questions to determine if you have any biases or if there's something wrong with you before you are put on the jury. I find it hard to believe that Judge Richard Leon was put on this case to replace the previous judge who did have a conflict of interest, who had already been through 3 or 4 hearings And then they put this guy, this judge, following her, and he also has conflicts of interest. I mean, is it not possible to find a judge in this district that doesn't know the Clintons or Podesta? Or Fusion GPS? I mean, does everybody know everybody? Is that how it is? It's a daisy chain of corruption. I don't care if they have to bring a judge from outside D.C. or outside the state or outside the country for that freaking matter. You've got to have a judge who does not have any conflicts of interest. But clearly, as we can see, meet the new judge, same as the old judge. This guy is got the same conflicts of interest that the previous judge had. But we'll keep watching and see where this goes. But my guess is that Judge Leon himself is probably going to have to step aside, and he'll have to try a third judge. And it's really important that we get a fair judge and a fair hearing in this case, because Fusion GPS and all the people involved in that whole scandal are not going to come forward and volunteer information. They've circled the wagons. They're on full defensive mode. You are going to have to pry it out of them to get the information. And you're going to need fair hearings. You're going to need a fair judge who isn't compromised. So we'll keep watching, because, again, I see no reason why, in this particular matter, that Devin Nunes cannot get access to Fusion GPS bank records. What do they have to hide? What do they have to hide? Why are they fighting it so hard? That's exactly what Devin Nunes wants to know, and many others, including me and many of you. I'll keep watching this. It's not going away. Devin Nunes is not going away. Period. And I believe they will fight this judge, and I believe he will have to step down, and we'll get another judge. And we'll see how that goes. And I'll let you know when that happens. Or I'll let you know if any rulings happen between now and that time. But at this point, that's where this left off. When they replaced the previous judge with Richard Leon, the issue was in limbo. Both attorneys had made their case. Nunes made his case. GPS Fusion made their case why Nunes should not get these bank records, saying it's going on a witch hunt, it's going outside the boundaries of what the initial request was. Then Nunes's attorney came back with his argument that, well, we believe that he may have paid off journalists and this and that and the other thing. And that's the last argument that was heard, was the argument by Devin Nunes' attorney, why they should get access to these bank records. And that's, at that point, is where they made the change in judges. I don't know what the next court date is or what's going to happen here, but I know that there's already people calling for Richard Leon, Judge Richard Leon, to step aside, and he should never have taken this post. He knows that he knows Podesta. He knows that. So, he needs to go. I'll keep following this and let you know how it plays out. The deep state has weaponized the media. That's how bad it is. I've been watching the media for a very, very long time. It's always been bad. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse over time. I've never in my lifetime seen it this bad. And I've been watching the media since I was a child. When I was 7, 8 years old, I would sit around and watch Meet the Press, This Week with David Brinkley, and all these shows. I was a news junkie when I was 7, 8 years old. I've been watching this stuff for a very, very long time. I've never seen it this bad. And so now I am coming out and stating that I believe that the proper word to use to accurately describe what we have going on here is that the deep state has now weaponized the media. They are using the media now as a weapon, as a tool to conduct political warfare. And I have to tell you, we're greatly outnumbered. ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, the Washington Post. You go right down the line. Fortunately, we own the alternative media, the independent media, and we are the future. But we got to survive today or there'll be no future. There's active, we have people like Media Matters that are actively, they do nothing all day long but try to take down conservatives. And I'm not even a huge fan of a lot of these guys. But you have to stand up and fight at some point. You just cannot allow yourself to be steamrolled. That's one reason I do these videos, among many other reasons, and why we should all support independent media. And I mean support it. I don't necessarily mean give money. Yes, if you got money and you want to give it to your favorite YouTuber, go ahead. I actually don't ask for any money. I've got a job. There's no ads running on my videos. I'll never ask you for a dime. I'll never get on a YouTube video and ask you to contribute or anything like that. And even if you wanted to, there's no way to do it. I have a job. I do this because I think it's important. And as I said, I'm doing a video diary so that I'll have a documented, day-by-day, play-by-play notebook or diary of the events as they unfolded. That's why I do these videos. But if you have YouTubers or people with independent news media and there's some way you can support them and you can do that financially, that's fantastic. Because again, the media has been weaponized. It's now a weapon that's being used against us, and so we have to fight back. And we do own the independent media, and we are the future. But things are pretty tough right now for a lot of people in the independent media, so we'll just keep fighting. Just wanted us all to be aware of that. Well, George Herbert Walker Bush, that demon, is now facing his 6th accuser of sexual misconduct. This one is alleging that George Herbert Walker Bush grabbed her ass when she was 16. Not sure how old he was, probably like 70 or something. Yeah, I mean, it's a very well-known fact that he's a perv. It's just funny that you're hearing all this talk about Roy Moore, and you're hearing all these people that they're talking about, but when it's old George Herbert Walker Bush, oh, that's just that old 90-year-old George Herbert Walker Bush playing a little grab ass. Nothing to worry about. And of course, Jeb Bush, low energy Jeb, he couldn't help but come out and make a comment about Judge Moore and say, oh, well, he should not be confirmed. The Republican governor should reject him if he wins the Senate race in Alabama. They should not allow him to be seated in Congress, blah, 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 blah. While Jeb has absolutely nothing to say about his creepy old dad who's been groping women for years. Apparently, I don't know, maybe Jeb pushes Pops through the mall on Saturday afternoons in his wheelchair while he plays a little grab ass. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe Jeb and Daddy-O go play grab ass in the mall on Saturday afternoons. Who knows? The man's senile at this point. Remember that? And it's no secret that George Herbert Walker Bush maintained a mistress for nearly 40 years. Barbara knew it. The Bush boys knew it. The daughters knew it. They all knew it. Nothing new here, folks. He's a perv just like all the rests. Man, I got to tell you, I watched Jim Jordan, and I'm sure a lot of you did too, or at least you've seen some video clips. What an outstanding job. You know, when I watched Jim Jordan, the only thing as I was watching this is he was grilling Jeff Sessions. The only thing that I could think of is, man, the roles should be reversed. Jim Jordan should have been the Attorney General. Hell, I don't know if Trump ever would have got him confirmed, but that would have been an excellent choice for Attorney General. Jim Jordan. He is a hell of a guy. I mean, he's great. He's one of the very best congressmen that we have, and he's actually the congressman just one district north of me. So real nice town up there. It's Springboro, Franklin, and some other places up there that I know Mr. Shope is familiar with. And it's a good area up there and good people up there. I go up there a lot because that's where Dayton Mall is, and so I kind of live in a farming community, so that's kind of the nearest big town to me. So I spend a lot of time up near Dayton, Centerville, and Springboro, that area. But it's a beautiful area up there, and Jim Jordan, he's got great constituents, and he's a great congressman. But, you know, I'm sitting there watching him, and there was probably 8 or 10 questions that he asked Jeff Sessions. You know, was the FBI paying for the dossier? Did the FBI use the dossier to get the warrant? All these questions that we talk about here on TowerGate. And Jeff Sessions said, I cannot answer that. I cannot answer that. I cannot answer that. So there's a lot of things that he just simply would not answer. But, you know, he sent this letter, Sessions sent this letter to those members of Congress, about 20 of them, who sent him a letter 3 months ago asking for a special counsel. He sends them a letter back saying that he's going to have his, you know, department prosecutors look into that. We talked about it last night on TowerGate video, but then you watch the hearings today and you get the impression that he's walking all that back. So you just don't know what to think of Sessions. It's really hard to say. He might surprise us all and drop indictments on everybody, but it just doesn't look that way. And man, I just could not help but sit there and think, I wish Jim Jordan was the Attorney General. Because Jeff Sessions, man, I don't know. He just can't seem to execute. He can't execute. And apparently the thing that really is standing in the way is, apparently there's some tradition that you don't go back and prosecute after an election. You don't try to go back and revisit the election and prosecute the loser or something like that, because of all the shenanigans that are played during a political campaign. Because they all do in every political campaign. They do all kinds of stuff. But that's what Watergate was. Watergate was a political dirty trick that went out of control. And that's exactly what the dossier is. The Democrats had no problem prosecuting Nixon and during Watergate and his whole administration. So, I mean, it's not like there's some precedent. But for whatever reason, this seems to be the sticking point with Jeff Sessions. He doesn't want people to be able to say, yeah, well, this is just you going after Trump's political enemy. But at some point, you've got to forget about all that and just look at the evidence as Jim Jordan laid it out right to Sessions. He told him everything that we talk about here on TowerGate every day. He talked about who paid for the dossier and how it was blown up and how it was given to the intelligence community and how they obviously took it as law and used it possibly to get FISA warrants. He asked Sessions about that. He wouldn't answer that question either. But there's a lot more evidence that obstruction and many other crimes occurred during that election on the side of Obama and Hillary and all the rest. There's a lot more evidence of that than there is evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. But they have no problem allowing Mueller and his Hillary donor posse to conduct their witch hunt, but he can't see his way fit to suggest we get a special counsel to look into the political shenanigans that went on the Democratic side. And not even just the political stuff, but Uranium One had nothing to do with an election. That had to do with something that happened years ago. It was a cover-up. And a lot of crimes involved in that. The Clinton Foundation, nothing really to do with election, although there was involvement during the election, but the Clinton Foundation has been corrupt for many years. Been involved in many things. So I don't know. I just don't know what to think about Sessions. I'm like everyone else. I mean, you just don't know, because he won't answer any questions and he won't talk about a whole lot. You know, I mean, it's just where we are. You know, we may just have to ride this thing out until 2018 after the midterms, maybe even 2020, when Trump can let him go and appoint a good attorney general, and then maybe then. Maybe. But I mean, I honestly, when I look at all the criminal acts of the rotten Reverend Clinton and her husband and their friends, I don't see how in the world she does not get indicted, along with Bill and others. I just can't see how they could not get indicted. There's just so much there. So much there. I could prosecute any of these cases, and I'm not an attorney. It's just unbelievable. You could take Peter Schweitzer's book into court. Even if you weren't a lawyer, just read his book, take notes, and go to court. It's all documented right there. It's a slam dunk. I'm absolutely certain you could convict Hillary based on Schweitzer's book. Just unbelievable. But anyway, if you haven't seen the video clip of Jim Jordan grilling Sessions, and you know, watch it. But Sessions was also being grilled on the other side by Democrats who were, you know, working him over because they don't think he's working the Trump-Russia collusion hard enough. So I mean, he's taking it from both ends. I understand that, but you know what? He took the job, accepted the job. He accepted that job. He's just not doing it. He has recused himself. Yes, maybe we do need the good prince from Saudi Arabia to come over and stand in for Sessions. Maybe he'll take care of business. But Mr. Chopra up there is Attorney General. Or Johnny Five Finger. Or Patty. I can think of a lot of people I could replace Jeff Sessions with. Chelsea Clinton out giving a little speech celebrating the new Sharia law Barbie doll. A Barbie doll with wearing her wrap and her hijab. And of course, she got destroyed on Twitter. You got to read some of them Twitter responses. You know, Chelsea Clinton is she's the worst of everything of both of her parents, all three of her parents, I guess you'd say, combined. Webster Hubbell was a corrupt son of a bitch. She looks like Webster Hubbell. But she's as nasty as Hillary, as obnoxious as Bill. I mean, she's like the worst of... She got the worst traits of the whole group, man. She has no skills whatsoever, politically speaking. I mean, she's just horrible. I think she thinks she has a political career ahead of her. She doesn't. Chelsea Clinton's horrible. And every time she does something like this, she just gets destroyed on social media, but she continues to do it anyway. But yeah, Chelsea Hubbell Clinton out there all happy and smiles because now Barbie doll will come in a Sharia law version with her burqa. Wonderful. Fantastic. No bikinis for Barbie anymore. And I'm pretty sure Ken won't be allowed over on Sundays. No more Ken for Barbie. Yeah, the sexual harassment thing is getting out of control. You know, I mean, obviously it's been going on with the Hollywood, all these revelations of all these Hollywood people, which doesn't surprise any of us. We've known that Hollywood was a cesspool of pedophilia, corruption, drug addiction, and all sorts of stuff. It's been that way. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse over time. It's nothing but a sewer. It's a sewer. That's what Hollywood is. And I have a couple friends who live out there. Nothing personal to them. Good guys. But hey, I got a friend who lives on Sunset Boulevard. He's got a condo right around the block from Johnny Depp. Well, Johnny Depp's probably going to be selling that condo because he's bankrupt. Anyway, Hollywood's disgusting. I think we all know that. But now we're starting to see it starting to work its way into Washington, D.C. And we had this Democratic Congresswoman stand up and make a speech where she said there's two sitting members of Congress that groped her. One a Republican and one a Democrat. So now everyone wants to know who those two people are who allegedly groped this Democratic Congresswoman. Also, we now have a creep list. We learn about this creep list. Apparently, many women who are members of Congress or staffers or whatever that work on Capitol Hill, actually these women have their own creep list of men who they are to avoid, including members of Congress. This creep list, everyone wants to get their hands on that. Not only that, both houses of Congress are now going to, somebody is suggesting that they need to have classes about sexual, harassment or something like that. I mean, come on. You don't need classes. I think we all know what sexual harassment is and is not. And the idea that these members of Congress are even concerned, every damn one of these guys, most of these guys have prostitutes, mistresses, homosexual lovers, probably some of them are pedophiles. These guys are no better than the people out in Hollywood, man. I think that every damn member of Congress that's had an extramarital affair, has had any contact with a prostitute, anything like that, they should all resign tomorrow. They should all resign tomorrow. That's what I would like to see. Because they're all pointing the fingers at Roy Moore. And you know what? He may be guilty. I don't know. I suspect the timing of all that and who's paid and whether or not these women are paid. I have a lot of suspicions about that. I still think it's up to the voters in Alabama to decide. But it's just funny. You have all these people, Jeb Bush and John McCain, and we know about John McCain's past and his treatment of women, including his own wife. He refers to his wife oftentimes as the C word. In front of people, in front of other people, calls her that, including his daughter. So a scumbag like McCain, with his mouth, should never be pointing fingers at Roy Moore. But there's a lot of these members of Congress that makes me sick, because all these guys pointing the fingers at Roy Moore, many of them have prostitutes, girlfriends, mistresses, and all kinds of stuff going on. Half of them have illegitimate children. They have all kinds of stuff going on, and it's always been going on, not just in Hollywood, going on in D.C. as well. They're one and the same, two peas in a pod, birds of the same flock. It's exactly what they are. And it's just makes me mad to watch members of Congress pointing out Roy Moore or the Hollywood stuff when these guys are as guilty as sin. Probably half of them. Scumbags, all of them. That's why we need to drain the swamp completely. Well, the Senate GOP tax bill, this ought to be interesting. It looks like they're going to try to pass the tax bill after Thanksgiving, and it looks like they're going to have in there a law in there that will repeal the Obamacare mandate. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic, because that will be the end of Obamacare. That will only raise two very important questions. Number one is, after they do it, how are they going to deal with the fact that the remaining insurers that are left are then going to demand some sort of subsidies or something to keep them afloat, or they're going to bail and you'll have no health care at all. I mean, the entire health care system will collapse. I'm sure they've thought of that, and they probably have a plan. My guess is they do plan on, and until they get a real fix, that they will probably continue to subsidize the insurance companies. I'm pretty sure they won't take that kind of a move. But another thing is, if they do this, the House side is saying that if the Senate puts that in, that it will kill the House bill. So then you'll be back to square one, and you'll end up with another fail. And so you have to wonder, is McConnell doing this to play to his base on one hand, but to kill the deal on the other hand, because it will kill the House bill? Is this Ryan and McConnell working together to make sure the bill gets killed? Because it seems like every time they've got a bill that looks like it's got a chance of passing, something happens that kills the bill. There's always something that happens that kills the bill. And this is not how it generally works when you have the majority in both houses. You get your ducks lined up in a row. The Senate Majority Leader and the whip lean on their members. The Senate Majority leans on his members. They control the money. And we have an election coming up. They control where the money goes. Normally, they have no problem getting people to fall in line. But for some reason, since Trump's been president, nothing happens. Everything's a fail. And I'm just wondering if this is just another setup to fail. Well, Jeff Flake said he would vote for a Democrat over Roy Moore. He'd vote for a Democrat anyway. Abraham Lincoln could be running for that seat, and Jeff Flake would vote for a Democrat. Jeff the Flake is just butthurt because he knows he's done. He's going to have to actually go out and work for a living for a change. Now he'll probably become a lobbyist. He'll still be screwing us this time. Instead of screwing us on Capitol Hill, he'll be screwing us from K Street. Jeff the Flake. What a scumbag he is. Now, I have been looking into this relationship between the young prince and Jared Kushner. Still working on that, looking at a lot of information. And I'm talking about the Saudi prince Mohammed bin Salman, whose father, of course, is the aging king. He's 79. I don't think he's senile or anything like that, but he's not doing very well. It's well known that his son is trying to get his father to go ahead and turn over the power to him now, which generally they don't do. They generally wait till the king dies. But he's calling the shots anyway, for the most part, the prince is, the king's son. And it appears that he and Kushner struck up a very good relationship, and they get along very well. Apparently they talk regularly, as in like several times a week or something. Kushner's been there a couple times with Ivanka. Apparently they share a lot of goals, and we hear that this Prince Salman, we're learning more about some of these people who were purged. And they weren't just purged for corruption and money laundering and various other things, but apparently this prince is a real reformer. He wants Western type reforms in Saudi Arabia. And a lot of these guys are opposed to that. They're hardliners. But he also said that he doesn't like the fact, the prince that we're talking about, says he doesn't like the fact that they're too close to the globalist and the Europeans. And he describes himself as a nationalist, populist. Isn't that strange? A Saudi prince describing himself as a nationalist and a populist. But as I said, there was a deal cut. There's no doubt in my mind there was a deal cut. And this is good and bad. Keep in mind, during the 8 years of the Obama administration, the Saudis had a real falling out with the Obama administration because their number one enemy is Iran. And they thought that Obama administration was too light on Iran and was too friendly with Iran, cutting Iran too much slack. The Saudis wanted the United States to hit Iran. They've wanted that for a very long time. They were pushing it back during the Bush administration, pushing it all during the Obama administration, but of course Obama would never do that. He was reaching out the olive branch to the Iranians. So in this deal, as I suggested when I first mentioned this past Sunday, I said that I'm sure that part of the deal was that Trump assured this prince that if he would drain the swamp in Saudi Arabia, probably Trump's part of the deal was that he would tighten the screws down on Iran. But what Saudi Arabia wants and what this prince wants is much more than tightening the screws on Iran. He wants war with Iran. I don't know if he means direct war, because I don't think that Saudis could defeat the Iranians alone. They would need us. And I'm pretty sure the Trump administration, Donald Trump personally, has made it perfectly clear, I'm sure, to his people, based on the way they're acting, that he does not want another Middle Eastern war. Not right now. He wants to wind down the ones he's got. He wants to wind down Syria and Afghanistan. He doesn't want to create another war, especially a war in Iran, especially when he's dealing with the North Korea situation, which I think he sees as the major issue right now. But this prince, I think he's probably a good guy, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I think he's probably a good guy, but he's 31 years old, and he's got a lot of power, and he's got a lot of influence, and I am a bit concerned, and I think Trump's probably concerned as well. Hopefully Jared Kushner, he sounds like he's got a decent head on his shoulders. But if we look at what Mohammed bin Salman, the prince, has been doing since his father pretty much turned over most of the power to him, of course he's really ramped up the war, and well, of course the Syria war kind of is tuning out, but he was certainly backing that full tilt, and they pretty much, their sponsors, the guys they were sponsoring, pretty much got beat up pretty bad in Syria, so that was not a victory for the prince there. Certainly the way things have been going on in Yemen, it's not been going very well in Yemen. That's another one of the prince's battles, because these are kind of proxy wars. The war in Yemen is a proxy war against Iran and Hezbollah. Also in Syria was pretty much a proxy war as well. So these are proxy wars against Iran. And now we're looking at the situation in Lebanon, and that situation is heating up as well. And so there is a bit of concern on my part that the prince will think that he's got the support of the Trump administration, and that he will engage on the ground and actually send Saudi military into Lebanon, and that would spark a major, possibly a major Sunni Shia war all across the Middle East. It could also completely destabilize Bahrain, which is on shaky ground as it is. So there's a lot of shaky things going on there, and I know that Trump probably cut a deal, but I do hope the Trump administration keeps this prince, and again, I think mostly highly of him at this point, but I think they better put him on a very tight leash and not let him think that they fully support everything he does, because we might just find ourselves getting sucked into a very nasty deal there in Lebanon, which could spread a greater and wider war all throughout the Middle East between Sunni and Shia. And there's evidence to suggest that that's the way things are moving. So we need to watch the Lebanon situation very closely. I'll be doing that, but and I'll keep looking into this relationship between Kushner and the prince, and we'll just try to learn more, and hopefully things will turn out well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow night. You guys have a good night. Bye.